Okay, we finished part one. Now we'll do Trump's policies discriminate, really? Part two. Even though all the scientists who have worked with Trump on COVID-19 have vehemently disputed the claim that Trump has not listened to them, in mid-March, when Trump's task force scientists began giving guidelines to shut down the U.S. economy, Pelosi, Schumer, and many other Democrat politicians were still telling the American people to go out on the town and support your local businesses. This was a month and a half after Trump put in his restrictions on travel to China. It was a science that told President Trump, even if he did close down the economy, that 2.5 million people were going to die of coronavirus. But that number is now at 214,000 deaths. So if 250,000 people die of the virus, I would say Trump did a bang-up job. Who would argue that if only 1/10 of the people died of the virus, then what the scientists said would die from it, that it should not be considered an unbelievable win? Apparently, the Democrats will make that argument. So one could only assume that the Democrats are unhappy that more people did not die, so they could blame Trump for it. Let us not forget that on February 4th, 2020, only 5 days after Trump put the travel restrictions on China, and just 14 days after the first confirmed coronavirus case in the United States, President Trump was giving the State of the Union address and spoke about the virus in China. No one even knew for sure what it was yet. But in his speech, Trump tried to point out that this unknown virus in China seemed to be aggressive and should be handled carefully. While he was being proactive with this novel virus and had already taken steps on it, what was Nancy Pelosi doing? Well, that night, she was busy tearing up Trump's State of the Union address, the speech, with a look on her face like she hates the world. Honestly, do you think any congressperson in the room, I don't, heard President Trump's warning of the virus in China? And I do not think any congressperson even cared. Now remember, February 4th was the State of the Union address, when Trump announced the virus in China to the world. But you must also not forget that Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff, and the mainstream media and all the other Democrats were still promoting Americans to go out on the town and support your local businesses. I cannot understand two things. One, how phony and dishonest the left is. They know how long they were dismissive of the virus after Trump was taking action, proving that their entire agenda is based on biased political propaganda. And two, why won't the right take advantage of this fact and call them out on it? Let's take a look at Biden on crime. Senator Joe Biden, Senator Strom Thurmond, and Senator Robert Byrd wrote roughly a half dozen crime bills together, laying the groundwork for three of the most significant pieces of crime legislation of the 20th century. However, parts of these crime bills have proven to be disastrous, which Trump's First Step Act is correcting. Biden is segregationist. When Joe Biden was an up-and-coming young senator, he spent years in government side by side, working with and adapting the old Southern Democrat way of civil rights opposition and segregationism. Biden has always been opposed to integration of schools, and he introduced anti-busing legislation in the 1970s and 1980s. As he continued segregation and fewer school choices for minorities, he said he did not want his kids going to these integrated schools. He called them racial jungles. Biden has often praised and spoke of the following senators as mentors and friends. Biden has even suggested that he missed the days when he served with racist, Democrat segregationist senators, such as ex-KKK member Senator Robert Byrd, Senator Strom Thurmond, Senator James Eastland, and Senator Herman Talmadge. Now, Biden's abuse of power. Biden is and always was pro-China, Russia, and Ukraine. His son, Hunter Biden, was paid millions by companies of these countries to do jobs he had no experience for. These jobs, without doubt, Hunter was given were in obvious trade for access to his father's political power. Hunter has been given numerous gratuities, gifts, and secret cash payments by high-powered individuals of these countries. These favors come with a price. It puts America's national security at risk by Vice President Biden being a risk for blackmail from foreign countries and individuals. After all, the national security risk is exactly what the left has claimed the concern about Trump and his people are, with the liberals' phony, made-up Russia collusion hoax of President Trump. In Trump's 4 years as president, he has done more for minorities and people of color than Biden did in his 47 years in politics. Trump created record low unemployment for blacks, Hispanics, and women, record wage growth for minorities and women, more women in jobs than men for only the second time in U.S. history, record amount of funding to historically black colleges and minority universities. Trump signed landmark legislation on justice reform and signed a second chance law that rolled back Biden's 1994 crime bill, which disproportionately imprisoned young black men. During Trump's 4 years, he created one of the strongest economies the world has seen. Trump signed legislation from tax cuts to deregulation for freeing up businesses to trade tariffs. All these helped to bring the 480,000 manufacturing jobs back to the United States and create the 7.5 million new jobs in his first 3.5 years. In contrast, you have Biden's 47-year political career of mentorship, friendship, and engagement with racist, segregationist, and anti-civil rights senators. In 47 years, Biden did nothing to help minorities. Despite the Democrats' claim to be the party for minorities and women, ask yourself why, after 60 years of their policies, were minorities and women no better off? Poverty, food stamp participation, unemployment rates in minority communities at record highs, and stagnant wage growth is where the Democrats must keep the people of color and other minority groups. Because that is the only way the left can monopolize the minority vote. Think about it. If minority communities have less crime, fewer drugs, higher employment, less poverty, higher wages, and less dependence on the welfare system, what would they need the Democrat Party for? No, Biden has done nothing for minorities. And he certainly did not create an historic economy. President Trump's policies have helped minority communities more in his 4 years than Democrats did in the last 60 years. You also need to look at where Biden and his family made millions of dollars by abusing his power in politics to make deals with foreign companies and governments. Along with his son Hunter, they made millions and put the United States national security at risk from blackmail, fraud, security leaks, and favors. Because of the Democrats' divisive rhetoric, they have created an unprecedented division in America. We must take America back. This was a condensed version of material. You can read the full article on my website at commonconstitutionalism.com. Exercise your right to be heard and vote on November 3rd. Help save our republic and keep America America. Vote conservative. Thank you. Let's see what we can accomplish here. My aim is to create a loyal following so I can continue bringing awareness to these kinds of issues. We will talk about issues in our government, the erosion of our culture, the minimizing of our way of life, and the disregard for our Constitution. I would appreciate you all exploring, donating, subscribing, joining, and shopping on my sites. You will see them displayed at the beginning and the end of the videos. Until next time, this is Common Constitutionalism, and I am Mitch. Thank you, America.